In this chapter, we'll look at different types of loops used in PHP. Loops are an important labor-saving device for executing the same code multiple times. The most basic type of loop is a while loop. It consists of the keyword while followed by a condition in parentheses and a block of code in curly braces. As long as the condition remains true, the code inside the curly braces is repeated. The loop comes to an end when the condition is no longer true. So let's see that in action. This is while.php, which you can find in the chapter 505_01 folder of the exercise files. On line 3, the variable I is initialized to 0. This is one of the rare occasions when it's acceptable to use a single letter as a variable name. By common convention, I is used as the counter in loops. If you need more than one counter, it's common to use J and K. The condition inside the parentheses on line 5 tells the loop to continue running while I is less than 10. Then the code inside the curly braces increments the value of I and then displays I along with an HTML BR tag, and if we load this page into a browser, it displays the numbers from 1 till 10. Sometimes you want to break out of a loop early. To do so, you can add a conditional statement inside the loop and use the break keyword. So let's add a conditional statement after displaying I. Then if I equals 6, then we'll break. So if we save that and reload the page in the browser, we display 1 to 6, then we break out of the loop so nothing else is displayed. You can also skip an iteration of the loop using the continue keyword. To show how that works, let's use the modulus operator to divide I by 2. So I'm going to comment out this conditional statement on lines 9 to 11. And then add the new conditional statement before displaying the value of I. So if I modulus 2, then we'll continue. As explained in the previous chapter, the modulus operator returns the remainder of a division. If a number is even, dividing by 2 produces no remainder, in other words 0, and 0 is treated by PHP as false. So this condition will fail when I is an even number. But if I is an odd number, the remainder is 1, and that's treated as true. So whenever I is odd, the continue keyword will stop the current iteration before I is displayed and immediately go back to the top of the loop. So if we save that and reload the page in the browser, we display only the even numbers. I've used the modulus operator here simply to show how the continue keyword skips the rest of the code in the loop. There are, in fact, other more efficient ways of processing only even numbers, but a really useful example of using continue would be when processing the contents of a file line by line in a loop. You could use continue to skip blank lines. A variation of the while loop is the do while loop. In a do while loop, the condition comes after the block of code you want executed. So you begin with the keyword do, a block of code in curly braces, and then while followed by the condition in parentheses. It's also important to finish with a semicolon. Where this differs from a while loop is that the code in a do while loop will always be executed once, even if the condition is never true. So let's see how that works. This is do_while.php, which you can also find in the exercise files for this video. On line 3, I is initialized to 100. Then we've got a do while loop. Inside that loop, I is incremented, then it's displayed, and finally we've got this condition while I is less than 10. So if we run this in a browser, it displays 101 and then stops. So we're starting at 100, we increment it, but the condition is while I is less than 10. So we execute the code inside the curly braces once, but this condition is never true, so it just stops running. But if I go back to while and initialize I to 100 here, save that and run this in a browser, nothing is displayed because the condition prevents the loop from running even once. The danger with the while and do-while loops is setting an impossible condition. For example, if I reset this counter here to 0 and were then to comment out this line 7, in other words, to forget to increment inside the loop, it would never get to 10, and that would create an infinite loop that will either freeze the computer or cause the browser to crash, so don't try that. The while and do-while loops are the most basic types of loops. With a while loop, the condition is assessed at the start of each iteration, and the loop continues until the condition is no longer true. If the condition is false to begin with, the loop never runs. On the other hand, a do-while loop always executes the code in the loop at least once because the condition is assessed at the end of each iteration. We also looked at breaking out of a loop with the break keyword and skipping the rest of the current iteration using continue. Break and continue can be used in every type of loop.